Hi guys, my name's Ben, we're the Beard Guys, and welcome to Tip of the Week, Part 8, Ammo Types, the Basics. So there are a few different types of ammo you can use in WoT Tanks on Xbox, and it's important to understand the basics of what they are and what situations they can be used in. If you understand these strengths and weaknesses of the ammo types you have in your tank, then that'll give you an edge on the battlefield. Now before I begin, let me just say there are a few more complexities behind how ammo works in WoT Tanks that I'm not going to go into for the purpose of this video. I don't want to overcomplicate things too much at this stage, so I'm just going to put a link in the description to an excellent written guide by a PC player called WoT, and you guys can read through that if you want some more detail. So the first type of ammo we'll look at is armor piercing ammo, or AP ammo. Now you can recognize this in game by the white tracer fire that it leaves behind, and it's by far the most common ammo type you'll be using in WoT Tanks. It has a penetration value and a damage range that you can see indicated here in the garage, and how it works is it basically tries to penetrate a tank. If it doesn't penetrate, it'll do no damage. If it does penetrate, it'll do damage somewhere in that range shown in your garage. It also has a few other characteristics. It's pretty cheap, it does no splash damage, and it loses penetration over large distances. When shouldn't you use it? Tends to be more for things like large caliber guns, howitzers, big derp guns, that kind of thing that often are a bit better with HE, which we'll look at in a moment. So HE ammo, the second type we're going to look at, works a bit differently to AP. When you hit a tank with an HE shell, if you don't penetrate, there's still a chance you might do a small amount of damage, whereas with an AP you would do nothing. The temptation might be to throw on a HE shell rather than AP because the damage is very high, but because the penetration is so poor, it's normally not the case. When you hit a tank with an HE shell, if you don't penetrate, you'll lose half of the potential damage of that shell straight away, and then the remaining half of that damage will attempt to go through the rest of the armor, losing damage for every millimeter of armor. So there's a chance that you might do a very small amount of damage, but there's also a chance you might do none. If, however, you manage to hit a very weakly armored target with an HE shell, then you could do the full potential damage of that shell, and you can do massive damage. Now, there's not many tanks that you primarily fire HE with, but there's a few in the game like the SU-152 and other tanks with large caliber howitzers tend to work better with HE. Often due to the fact they have such high damage potential that even if you don't penetrate most of the time, you're still going to do more damage than you do firing your pretty pathetic AP shells. HE can also be really useful for resetting the cap if you're defending your base, because you only need to do 1 point of damage or some module damage to an enemy to reset all the capture points. So if you fire an HE shell and do 1 point of damage, that's better than hitting them with an AP shell and bouncing. HE can also be useful if you're firing at a heavily armored target that you have no hope of penning anywhere with your AP shells or your APCR shells, and you just want to try and chip off a little bit of health, or shooting a target who's on very low health and you could probably kill with a very small amount of damage. HE is generally pretty cheap, has much lower pen than AP, higher damage than AP, and does splash damage. It also has an increased chance of doing module and crew damage, and it doesn't lose any penetration value over distance. And HE ammo has yellow tracer fire when you see it being fired in game. Next up is APCR ammo. This is basically like super AP ammo, or so-called premium ammo. It's very expensive to use, and you should really only use it in situations where your AP ammo can't penetrate the target and you really have to. It's normally better to try and aim for weak spots rather than waste money firing off APCR. It's basically like AP, it has higher penetration, normally the same damage as AP, and it still loses pen over distance, normally at a faster rate than AP. It has no splash damage and can make you run out of silver very quickly. It also has red tracer fire when you fire it in the battlefield. Now the two less common ammo types that you see in game are heat ammo and HESH ammo. So heat ammo isn't very common, it has very high pen like APCR, but it doesn't lose penetration over distance. It's very expensive, and it's also very poor against sloped and spaced armor, and doesn't do any splash damage. What does it look like in game? It has blue tracer fire. Now the other type of ammo that's even more uncommon in game is HESH ammo. It's normally just found on high tier British tanks like the FV215B, 183, or the Death Star as it's known, which you pretty much primarily use HESH rounds on. And in World of Tanks, they basically work like a super HE shell. In the same way that APCR is like a premium AP shell, HESH is like a premium HE shell. It generally has lower pen than AP shells, but higher pen than HE shells. It has very high damage, it's very expensive, doesn't lose penetration over distance, and it does do splash damage, which gives it an increased chance of doing module damage. What does it look like in game? It looks like yellow tracer fire, like HE shells. So there's some basic information on the 5 different ammo types in World of Tanks, and hopefully you found some of that useful. My advice would be, if in doubt, use AP, and if you're not sure, just have a search around online and look at some reviews of that tank you're using and see what the type of ammo people recommend to use with it. Generally, people use AP for most things, but it's always worth having a little mix, and there are some strange tanks out there that work much better with a strange ammo loadout. If you're playing a KV2 or an SU-152, then you're probably going to have a full HE loadout. So hopefully you guys found some of that information useful. If you did, please think about hitting like and subscribing to the channel, and let me know in the comments what you think about this information on ammo types. What's your favourite type of ammo to use? What are the tanks do you think have the weirdest ammo loadouts? Which tank do you think benefits the most from using HE or HESH or heat ammo? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ben, we're the Beard Guys, and I'll see you next time.